What's up, fellow audio nerds? Sonible just released their new SmartGate plugin, so I figured we'd put it to the test by comparing it to my current favorite drum gate. So who will come out on top? The new kid on the block with its cutting-edge AI technology, or the reigning heavyweight champion, Oxford Drum Gate from Sonics? Let's find out. So first, let's talk features. Both plugins do a handful of things the other can't. For instance, if you want to gate anything besides drums, SmartGate wins. Period. As the name Drum Gate implies, it's for drums and really doesn't work on much else. SmartGate, on the other hand, has settings specifically for vocals, guitars, bass, keys, and more. But today, we're just looking at drums because that's pretty much the only thing I personally used gates for. As for Oxford Drum Gate's extra features, it has an incredibly cool leveler built in, allowing you to even out inconsistent drum hits in an incredibly transparent way. The other thing worth mentioning is price. Sonible SmartGate is $129, and it looks like if you already own any Sonible plugins, you should have a loyalty offer to make it cheaper. Oxford Drum Gate, on the other hand, is $230, so a pretty big difference there. But as of the time of filming this video, Sweetwater has Drum Gate on sale for only $58 for the next 10 days. So if you're watching this when it first comes out and you decide you want to add it to your collection, now's a great time. I'll put links for both Drum Gate and SmartGate in the description down below. And using those links when you buy really helps out the channel, so I can make more videos about awesome plugins for you. But with that all out of the way, let's see how these two gates perform. First, let's try them on toms. If we listen to this section, there's a ton of bleed, both from cymbals and the snare drum. And the bleed is basically as loud as the tom itself, which for a normal gate would be a problem. Let's load up an instance of SmartGate and see what we can do. First, we'll go up to the Target Select menu and choose the type of track we're gating, in this case, toms. Then hit play to let SmartGate analyze your audio and search for the tom hits. So you can see it's already recognizing our tom hits, but with the current settings, it's still letting in way too much bleed. So I'll go ahead and tweak the level bias and release settings to get something that's working a little better. And now it's sounding pretty solid. Let's bring up Drum Gate and see how it handles these toms. Much like SmartGate, the first thing we'll want to do is select our drum type. So right off the bat, Drum Gate is not doing as good of a job at recognizing what's a tom and what's not. So we'll need to tweak a few settings to get it to work better. The first thing to check is the threshold slider in the match transient section. Moving it up makes its selection pickier, only picking the hits that it's most confident are tom hits. And moving it down makes it less choosy. But in this case, it's pretty darn confident that some of these snare hits are toms, so that's not going to work. Instead, we can use the Remove Matched button. Just select some of the hits that shouldn't be opening the gate, hit the Remove Matched button, and hit play. Now it'll ignore those hits and similar sounding hits. But it looks like it's still opening for those snare hits right before the toms. So once again, we'll select one of those and remove the match. There, now we've got it dialed in. Now let's go over to the decay tab to dial in the release. First, I'll bring our gain reduction slider all the way down since we're hard gating in SmartGate. And now let's look at the release. This honestly sounds really good with the default settings, but what's really cool in Drum Gate is that you have frequency dependent release times. So for instance, on this tom, we can have a nice short decay for the top end to cut out the harsh cymbal bleed, but then we can lengthen the decay of the low end, allowing the tom to ring out more naturally. For now, let's set the decay back to the default and compare it to SmartGate to see how these two compare. So based on that, Drum Gate sounded a lot more natural to me. Let's try messing with the release in SmartGate to see if we can improve it. Even with a much faster release, SmartGate still seems to be letting in more cymbals and is just sounding overall less natural to my ear. But now let's test them on snare drum. We'll start with Drum Gate, and once again, we'll select snare and adjust the threshold if necessary. And just like that, it sounds great. We could tweak the decay settings, but the default is sounding great, so I'll just roll with that for now. Now let's try Just like with the tom example, there's just something kind of off about the sound of this gate to me. Something about the release curve just sounds unnatural. It either leaves the drum sounding super spiky or leaves in way too much bleed, or sometimes both. Let's jump between the two gates again so you can see what I'm talking about. Drum gate just sounds so much more natural to me. I tried messing with the high, mid, and low sliders in the impact tab of SmartGate, but nothing I tried seemed to help much. So for me, the choice is pretty clear. The AI part of SmartGate actually worked incredibly well. In these examples, it did a way better job of recognizing the tom hits, but it's the actual gate part of the plugin itself that I'm not so crazy about. There's just something weird to me about those attack and release curves. I even compared it to a few normal boring gates like the stock Pro Tools one and Waves G1, and both of those sounded more natural to me. Obviously, they can't tell the difference between a snare and a hi-hat or a tom and a snare, but when giving it something easy to work with, I thought they sounded better. I found myself spending a lot of time tweaking a ton of settings in SmartGate, while only making the smallest of improvements to the sound. While Drumgate had a tougher time with the drum recognition, and to be fair, I chose this tom example specifically because Drumgate was struggling a bit with it. It oftentimes works flawlessly right away. But once I got it triggering correctly, it sounded good pretty much instantly, without any tweaking. And even when you do have to make some tweaks, it feels much more intuitive, so you can spend more time making important mix decisions and less time messing with your gates. Maybe at some point, Sonible will give you an option to change the shape of the timing curves or something like that to get a more natural sound. Because again, the AI portion of the plugin worked great. But until then, Oxford Drumgate is still the champion in my book. And if you want to learn more about Drumgate, including some of the cool features we didn't get into in this video, check out my deep dive review right here. Or click here to see how you can use FabFilter Saturn as an incredible drum gate. And once again, if you want to pick up either of these gates for yourself, there are links in the description down below.